Welcome to Alien Whisper, where sizzling hot alien women and emotional sci-fi alien stories await you. If you enjoy thrilling adventures between humans and extraterrestrial beings, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below the video. Now, let's dive into the story. Captain Elias Thorne stepped off the shuttle, his boots sinking into the soft, golden sand of Xerion. The heat hit him like a wall, making him squint against the blinding sunlight. He adjusted his uniform, already feeling the sweat starting to bead on his forehead. Xerion was a desert planet, its surface a vast expanse of shimmering sand dotted with towering rock formations that stretched toward the sky like ancient sentinels. The air was dry and still, carrying the faint scent of minerals and distant spices. In the distance, the capital city loomed, its buildings carved into the base of a massive mesa, their spires and domes glinting under the relentless sun. Elias had been to many planets in his career as a diplomat, but Xerion was unlike any he had seen before. The Zarithians, the planet's inhabitants, were known for their pride and ancient traditions, and Elias knew this mission would be no easy task. He was here to negotiate a trade agreement, one that could bring prosperity to both their peoples. But he also knew that one wrong step could unravel everything. As he made his way toward the city, escorted by two Zarithian guards, Elias took in the sights and sound around him. The marketplace was a flurry of activity, with aliens of all shapes and sizes haggling over goods. Stalls overflowed with exotic fruits, their colors vivid and strange, and others displayed intricate jewelry crafted from local minerals. The air was filled with the hum of unfamiliar languages and the rhythmic beat of alien music. Despite the unfamiliarity, Elias felt a thrill of excitement. This was why he had become a diplomat, to bridge gaps between worlds, to foster understanding, and to make a difference. But as he approached the grand entrance to the city, he couldn't shake a sense of unease. The Zarithians were not easily impressed, and their history with outsiders was fraught with tension. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The success of this mission rested on his shoulders, and he was determined not to let anyone down. The meeting hall was a cool refuge from the scorching heat outside, its walls adorned with intricate carvings that told stories of Zarithian history. Elias stood at the head of a long, polished table, surrounded by Zarithian dignitaries. Their faces were impassive, their eyes sharp as they regarded him. He had just finished his opening remarks, outlining the proposed trade agreement, when he noticed a shift in the room's atmosphere. The dignitaries exchanged glances, and one of them, a stern elder with piercing eyes, spoke up. "Captain Thorne," the elder said, his voice low but commanding, "do you mean to imply that our resources are inferior to those of your Federation?" Elias blinked, caught off guard. "No, not at all. I was simply stating that our technologies could complement each other." But the elder cut him off. "Your words suggest otherwise. Perhaps you think we are primitives, unable to provide anything of value." Elias felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back. He had to defuse this situation quickly. "I assure you, that is not my intention. I have the utmost respect for your culture and your achievements." But his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The tension in the room was palpable, and Elias feared he had already jeopardized the entire mission. That's when he noticed her, a Zarithian woman standing near the back of the room. Her skin shimmered like the desert sands, and her deep blue eyes seemed to see right through him. She caught his eye and gave a slight nod, as if to say, "I can help." She stepped forward, her robes flowing gracefully around her. "Honored elders," she began, her voice calm and measured. "Perhaps I may clarify Captain Thorne's meaning. As a scholar of interspecies relations, I believe I can provide some context." The elder regarded her for a moment, then nodded. "Proceed, Lyra." Lyra turned to Elias, her gaze steady. "Captain, in Zarithian culture, direct praise can sometimes be misinterpreted as condescension, especially when it comes to matters of trade. It might be better to focus on the mutual benefits rather than individual strengths." Elias nodded, grateful for her intervention. "Thank you, Lyra. You're absolutely right. Let me rephrase." He turned back to the elders. What I meant to say is that by combining our resources and knowledge, we can achieve greater prosperity for both our peoples. It's not about one being better than the other, but about working together to build something stronger. The elders seemed to consider this, and after a moment, the stern one spoke again. Very well, Captain Thorne. We will continue this discussion. But be warned, we will not tolerate any further insults, intentional or not. Elias bowed his head. Understood. I will be more careful with my words. As the meeting adjourned, Lyra approached him. That was a close call, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Thank you for stepping in. I don't know what I would have done without you. Lyra inclined her head. It's my duty to facilitate understanding between our peoples. But I must say, you're handling this better than most outsiders do. Elias chuckled. I'm trying, but I have a feeling I'll need your help again before this is over. Lyra's smile widened. I'm sure you will. But don't worry, I'll be here. As she walked away, Elias couldn't help but watch her go, feeling a strange sense of connection. There was something about her, something that intrigued him, something that made him want to know more. But for now, he had a job to do. He pushed aside his personal feelings and focused on the task at hand. The trade agreement was too important to let distractions get in the way. Little did he know that Lyra would become much more than just a helpful guide. She would become a partner, a friend, and perhaps something more. But that was a story for another time. After the tense meeting with the Zarithian elders, Lyra approached Elias with a calm but purposeful stride. Captain Thorne, she said, her voice soft yet confident, the elders believe you should visit our sacred temple of the sands. It's a cornerstone of our culture, and seeing it might help you understand our people better. Elias's eyes lit up with interest. I'd be honored to see it. When can we go? Tomorrow morning, Lyra replied, a faint smile crossing her lips. It's a day's journey, but the desert path is stunning. The next morning, they set out on Zarithian mounts, sleek creatures with iridescent scales and long, graceful necks, like camels crossed with something otherworldly. The desert stretched endlessly before them, golden dunes shimmering under the twin suns. Lyra pointed out ancient rock formations and shared tales of Zarithian legends, her passion for her heritage evident in every word. Elias listened closely, captivated by her knowledge and the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke. He found himself drawn not just to her intellect, but to the quiet strength she carried. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and a fierce wind whipped across the dunes. A sandstorm, Lyra shouted, her voice barely audible over the howling gusts. We need shelter now. They urged their mounts forward, sand stinging their faces. In the distance, Elias spotted a cluster of jagged rocks. There, he called, pointing through the haze. They reached the rocks just as the storm's full force hit, dismounting and guiding their mounts into a narrow crevice. The space opened into a small cave, its cool, dark interior a stark contrast to the chaos outside. They settled against the rough stone walls, catching their breath. You okay? Elias asked, brushing sand from his uniform. Lyra nodded, shaking sand from her robes. Yes, thanks to you spotting this place. For a while, they sat in silence, the storm's roar filling the air. Sand pelted the rocks outside, and the wind wailed like a living thing. Elias broke the quiet. So, tell me about this Temple of the Sands. What makes it so special? Lyra's face softened, her eyes gleaming with reverence. It's the heart of our culture. Legend says our ancestors built it thousands of years ago, and it holds the key to Xerion's future. There are artifacts there, objects of great power, but only those deemed worthy can unlock their secrets. Elias raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Worthy? How's that decided? Lyra tilted her head, thoughtful. It's not about wealth or status. It's about purity of heart, approaching with respect and humility. The temple chooses who it reveals itself to. Elias nodded, impressed. That's different from the Federation. We're all about results, achievements. Sometimes I wonder if we miss something deeper. Lyra studied him, her gaze curious. What drives you, Elias? What keeps you going? He hesitated, then opened up. I want to make a difference, to connect worlds and build understanding. But sometimes, I feel like I'm just checking boxes, not really changing anything. Lyra placed a gentle hand on his arm. You're doing more than you think. Your respect for our ways, your willingness to learn, that's rare for an outsider. Her touch sent a warmth through him, and he smiled. Thanks, Lyra. That means a lot. As the storm raged on, they talked for hours. Elias shared stories of his homeworld, a lush planet with endless oceans, and his family's hopes for his career. Lyra spoke of her studies, her love for uncovering Xerion's ancient secrets, and her dream of a future where her people could thrive without fear of exploitation. The storm eventually quieted, and the sky cleared, revealing a canopy of stars. Lyra stood and stepped to the cave's entrance. Look, she said softly. Elias joined her, gazing at the night sky. Stars glittered like diamonds, and Xerion's 2 moons cast a silver glow over the dunes. It's incredible, he whispered. Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. Yes, it is. They stood there, the silence between them heavy with unspoken feelings. Lyra spoke again. It's too late to keep going. We should rest here and head to the temple at dawn. Elias agreed, and they settled down, using their mount saddles as pillows. As he lay under the stars, Elias felt this journey was about more than diplomacy. It was about discovery of himself, of Lyra, and of something growing between them. Dawn broke with a gentle breeze, the desert bathed in soft golden light. Elias and Lyra set out early, eager to reach the Temple of the Sands. As they approached, Elias was struck by its grandeur. Carved into a towering cliff, the temple's entrance was flanked by massive statues of Zarithian warriors, their stone faces weathered but proud. Glowing crystals embedded in the walls pulsed with a faint, otherworldly light. Lyra led him through corridors lined with intricate carvings, the air cool and humming with energy. Elias felt a sense of reverence, as if the temple itself were alive. At the heart of the structure was a vast chamber, where a single radiant orb rested on a pedestal, its blue glow casting dancing shadows. This is the heart of Xerion, Lyra whispered, her voice filled with awe. It's said to hold the essence of our planet's life force. Elias stared, mesmerized. Can I touch it? Lyra nodded, her expression serious. If you feel ready, only those with pure intentions can approach it safely. Taking a deep breath, Elias stepped forward and gently touched the orb. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a warm light enveloped him, and a surge of energy coursed through his veins. Visions flooded his mind, Xerion's ancient past, its people's struggles, their triumphs, and their hopes for the future. When the light faded, Elias stumbled back, his heart pounding. What was that? Lyra's eyes shone with pride. The heart has accepted you, Elias. It sees the purity in your heart. Elias was speechless, the weight of the experience settling over him. It felt as if Xerion itself had welcomed him, forging a bond he couldn't explain. As they left the temple, Elias carried a newfound connection to the planet and its people. This mission was no longer just about trade. It was about building a bridge between worlds. On the ride back to the city, he and Lyra rode in comfortable silence, each processing the morning's events. As they neared the city gates, Lyra turned to him, her expression earnest. Elias, there's something I need to say. His heart skipped a beat. What is it? She took a deep breath. Elias and Lyra rode back into the city, the glow of their confession at the Temple of the Sands still warming their hearts. The city gates buzzed with activity, merchants haggling, children darting through the crowd. But Elias sensed a shift in the air, like a storm brewing beneath the surface. Inside the council chambers, the mood was grim. The elder who had questioned Elias before stood tall, his eyes sharp with concern. Captain Thorne, he said, his voice heavy, rumors are spreading. Some of our people believe your Federation's trade agreement will strip our resources, leaving us vulnerable. We've heard tales of other planets exploited under similar deals. Elias's stomach tightened. He'd expected pushback, but not this soon. I assure you, Elder, The Federation seeks a fair partnership. This agreement will benefit both our peoples. The Elder's gaze didn't waver. Words are cheap, Captain. We need proof of your commitment. Lyra stepped forward, her presence calm but commanding. Honored Elder, Captain Thorne has shown his respect for our ways. He was accepted by the heart of Xerion at the temple. That alone speaks to his sincerity. The Elder paused, considering her words, then nodded slowly. Perhaps, but not all share your faith, Lyra. Captain, you must address the council and convince them. Elias squared his shoulders. I'll do whatever it takes. As they left the chambers, Lyra's face was etched with worry. Elias, this is serious. If the council rejects the agreement, it could spark conflict, or worse, fracture our people's trust. He took her hand, his touch steady. I know, but we'll get through this. Together. That night, Elias pored over his speech, with Lyra by his side, offering insights into Zarithian values. Their teamwork felt natural, each balancing the other's perspective. But as midnight approached, Elias couldn't ignore the question gnawing at him. Lyra, he said quietly, if this works, I'll have to return to the Federation. What does that mean for us? Her eyes met his, shimmering with emotion. I've been thinking about that. My home is here, but my heart, it's with you. I want to see your world, to stand by your side. Elias's chest swelled with hope, but doubt lingered. Leaving Xerion, it's a huge step. Are you sure? She smiled, a tear glistening on her cheek. You've shown me a life I never imagined. I'm ready to take that step if it's with you. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. Then we'll face the future together. The next morning, Elias stood before the council, his voice clear and confident. He spoke of shared prosperity, of respect for Zarithian traditions, and of a future where both worlds could thrive. When he finished, a heavy silence filled the room. Then, slowly, the council members nodded. The Elder spoke, a faint smile breaking through. Captain Thorne, your words ring true. We will move forward with the agreement, but we'll watch closely. Elias exhaled, relief washing over him. Thank you. I won't let you down. Lyra rushed to his side, her eyes bright with pride. You were amazing, Elias. He grinned, hugging her tightly. We did this, Lyra. Their moment of triumph was cut short as they stepped outside. A group of Zarithians blocked their path, their faces twisted with anger. Traitors, one shouted. You're selling our heritage to outsiders. Elias moved in front of Lyra, his voice firm. This agreement strengthens Xerion, not weakens it. It's about partnership, not betrayal. The crowd surged forward, their shouts growing louder. Suddenly, the Elder's voice boomed from the steps above. Enough! Captain Thorne has the blessing of the heart of Xerion, and the council has spoken. This is our path forward. The crowd hesitated, then dispersed, though grumbles echoed in their wake. Elias turned to Lyra, his jaw tight. This isn't over. There's still resistance. She nodded, her expression resolute. But we've won the council's trust. Now, we need to prepare for your return to the Federation. Elias's heart sank. And you're coming with me? Her hand found his. Yes, let's go see the stars. The day of departure came swiftly, the spaceport alive with the hum of shuttles and the chatter of Zarithians. Elias and Lyra stood together, surrounded by a small group of well-wishers, the Elder, Lyra's mentor, and a few council members. The desert sun cast long shadows, painting the sands in hues of gold and amber. Captain Thorne, the Elder said, offering his hand, you've earned our respect. We trust you to uphold this agreement. Elias shook his hand firmly. I will, Elder. Thank you for your faith in us. Lyra embraced her mentor, tears brimming in her eyes. I'll miss Xerion, but I'll carry it with me always. Her mentor smiled, brushing a tear from her cheek. Go, Lyra. Show the stars what a Zarithian can do. As they boarded the shuttle, Elias took one last look at Xerion. The vast dunes stretched endlessly, a testament to the planet's enduring spirit. He felt a tug of sadness, but also a spark of excitement for what lay ahead. Inside the shuttle, Lyra sat beside him, her hand slipping into his. Ready for this? She asked, her voice soft but steady. Elias squeezed her hand, his smile warm. With you? Always. The shuttle hummed to life, lifting off with a gentle lurch. Through the window, Xerion's deserts faded into a golden blur, giving way to the black expanse of space. Lyra pressed her face to the glass, her eyes wide with wonder. It's beautiful, she whispered. Elias watched her, his heart full. Yeah, it is. Aboard the Federation flagship, Elias introduced Lyra to his crew. Some raised eyebrows, others offered cautious smiles, but Elias's confidence in her set the tone. This is Lyra, he said to Commander Jax, his second-in-command. She's part of the team now. Jax, a grizzled veteran, studied her for a moment, then nodded. If she's with you, she's with us. That evening, in Elias's quarters, Lyra stood by the viewport, gazing at the stars. It's so vast, she said, her voice tinged with awe. I never dreamed I'd see this. Elias joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. This is just the start. There's a whole universe out there, and we'll explore it together. She turned to him, her eyes glowing with promise. Together, she echoed, leaning into his embrace. As the flagship sailed through the cosmos, Elias knew their journey was only beginning. Challenges awaited, cultural differences, Federation politics, the weight of their new life. But with Lyra by his side, he felt ready for anything. For the first time, he wasn't just a diplomat navigating worlds. He was a man who had found his home in her heart. Life on the Federation flagship was a whirlwind for Lyra. The ship was a marvel of technology, with corridors that seemed to stretch on forever and rooms filled with screens and gadgets she couldn't begin to understand. But amidst the wonder, there was also a sense of isolation. She was the only Zarithian on board, and while most of the crew were polite, she could feel their eyes on her, curious, sometimes wary. Elias did his best to make her feel at home, introducing her to the various departments and crew members. Commander Jax, his second-in-command, was particularly welcoming, showing her around the science lab and explaining some of the experiments they were conducting. You'll get the hang of it, Jax said with a grin. This place grows on you. But not everyone was as open. One evening, as Lyra was walking through the recreation area, she overheard a group of engineers talking. I don't trust her, one said, his voice low. What if she's here to spy on us, to find out our weaknesses? Another chimed in. Yeah, the Zarithians have always been secretive. Who knows what she's really up to? Lyra's heart sank. She had thought she was starting to fit in, but clearly there were still doubts. That night, she confided in Elias. I don't know if I belong here, she said, her voice trembling. Maybe I should go back to Xerion. Elias took her hand, his grip firm. Lyra, you belong with me. And I'll make sure everyone knows that you're part of this crew, part of this family. Before he could address the crew, an alarm blared through the ship. Engine room malfunction. All hands to stations. Elias and Lyra rushed to the engine room, where smoke was billowing from a panel. The chief engineer was shouting orders, but the situation was dire. Lyra's eyes scanned the room, and she noticed a familiar symbol on one of the consoles. It was Zarithian technology, part of the trade agreement. I think I can help, she said, stepping forward. The chief engineer looked at her skeptically, but nodded. Go ahead. Lyra quickly assessed the problem. The Zarithian component was overheating, causing a cascade failure in the system. She remembered a technique from her studies and began to recalibrate the settings, her fingers flying over the controls. Within minutes, the alarm stopped and the smoke cleared. The engine room was safe. The crew stared at her in amazement. How did you do that? The chief engineer asked. Lyra smiled. Zarithian technology can be tricky, but I've spent my life studying it. From that day on, the crew's attitude towards Lyra changed. They began to include her in their conversations, asking her about Zarithian culture and technology. Even the engineers who had doubted her came to apologize. I'm sorry for what I said, one of them told her. You're one of us now. Lyra accepted their apologies gracefully. I understand. It's not easy to trust someone from another world. But I'm here to help, not to harm. The engineer chuckled. Guess having a Zarithian on board isn't so bad after all. Lyra raised an eyebrow, a playful glint in her eyes. Not bad? I'd say it's your lucky day. The crew laughed, and for the first time, Lyra felt truly at home. That evening, as they stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars, Elias wrapped his arm around Lyra's shoulders. The galaxy stretched before them, a tapestry of light and mystery. "You're incredible, you know that?" he said. She leaned into him, smiling. "I couldn't have done it without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Together, we can do anything," he replied, his voice warm with conviction. As they gazed at the vast expanse of space, Lyra felt a sense of peace. She had left her home behind, but she had found a new one here, among the stars, with Elias by her side. And so, their journey continued, two souls intertwined, ready to face whatever the universe had in store for them.